12.19 is turned into Twitch supremacy as the AP buffs have made him strong in 3 different roles. What about those Blitzcrank buffs? Can he work in the jungle as a result of the changes? We'll be breaking all this down and much more as we bring you guys a complete update on the solo queue meta thanks to the help of our challenger players and analyzing the most recent data. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. The new king of top lane for 12.19 is Nasus. A 5% win rate spike is pretty insane, and at first look, we didn't really expect it to be that crazy, but after seeing Nasus on live servers, it all comes together. The Q and R changes are absolutely insane and provide Nasus with way more viability. On top of this, the attack speed slow buff provides him with even more 1v1 power and the ability to shut down auto-reliant champs super hard. Kayle, Tryndamere, Irelia, and Jax are a few matchups Nasus is absolutely smashing in 12.19. Frozen Heart Rush has become more popular as well into these champs as it completely nullifies their dueling power. The core of Divine Sunderer and Frozen Heart is really strong right now, while your third purchase should be a situational tank item. Fleet is the most consistent keystone for Nasus as you follow with Second Wind along with Adoran's Shield start for incredible early sustain. Nasus has definitely exceeded our initial expectations as a result of his buffs, so we'll be pushing him up into OP for mid-patch. Is top lane really Ryze's best role at the moment? The 12.19 buffs combined with many positive external factors have allowed Ryze to jump out of the gutter. With Nasus rising in priority, Ryze can do a good job at answering since he runs Phase Rush, which makes Nasus's W slow rather useless. Since there are way more melee champs played top than mid, Ryze can gain advantages a little better and scale into his mid to late game where those AP ratio buffs will come into their full effect. By no means is Ryze a top tier pick now, but his time in C tier has come to an end as we will be moving the Rune Mage up into B tier. The OP tier for top lane sees its first major shakeup in a while as Nasus and Mordekaiser will be joining Shen and Darius. Aatrox has landed where we expected as a result of the Eclipse nerfs as he is no longer an OP top lane pick but remains a very solid S tier option. For an update on some of the off-meta top lane builds, Garen saw his E crit strike damage increased, but it hasn't really translated into anything. We are seeing more Garen players build him full crit, but the setup is just not as optimal as the standard Stride Breaker into Mortal Reminder. After all, you are still benefiting from the buff due to the fact Mortal was already a core item for Garen. A new off-meta build that surprisingly has some viability to it is Demonic Embrace Tahm Kench. Tom had his Q and R AP ratios increased, so it's allowed Demonic to slot in as a snowbally second purchase. Sion, Mordekaiser, and Set are 3 of the best top laners to climb low elo the fastest. Maokai, Aatrox, and Nasus are all worth a ban for 12.19. Blitzcrank jungle has actually become somewhat viable in 12.19, definitely not top tier, but you can make it work now. Blitz's base attack speed and attack speed ratio were increased, providing him with a more potent early clear. W bonus attack speed has gone up, and the spell now applies % max health damage. Blitz E now deals bonus damage to non-champions, so another boost to his clear. Although these changes speed up Blitz's clear a considerable amount from where it was before, it's still pretty terrible compared to meta junglers. After all, Blitz has no AoE damage pre-6, so he takes Raptors and Wolves slower than most junglers. Skipping these camps and going for more of a spam gank style is honestly the way to go. Predator and Hail of Blades are the runes leading to the most success for Blitz jungle. If your laners have nice gank assists, then running Predator and capitalizing on that is a great idea. However, if your team is playing scaling picks like Kassadin mid and Enchanter support, then Hail of Blades is a good alternative. The build is identical to that of Bruiser Diana jungle as you will rush a Nashor's Tooth into Sunfire second and Demonic Embrace third. All in all, Blitz jungle is definitely more of a for fun pick, so if you're serious about climbing, there are better options. However, with his play rate spiking this patch, we wanted to make sure we covered it. C tier is where Blitz will be placed on the tier list. For the jungle tier list, Bel'Veth and Fiddlesticks are the OP picks of the patch. We moved Echo into S tier for our pre-patch tier list, and he will continue to lock down that spot midway through the patch. Buffs have been super positive for Echo, and he's back to being one of the priority solo queue junglers. The Master Yi nerfs have lowered his power to the level we expected, as he is no longer an OP jungler, but nerfs were relatively light, so he has only dropped as far as S tier. One minor adjustment to the tier list is moving Rek'Sai back into S tier. Usually, these base AD nerfs hit early game champions a little more, but Rek'Sai's win rate didn't budge at all as a result of the change. It actually went up, which is super odd. Who knows, maybe Riot forgot to even add the change in the first place. Rammus, Udyr, and Bel'Veth are our top 3 low elo junglers of the patch. Udyr, Fiddle, and Bel'Veth are a few of the highest priority bans. Although more commonly seen in the jungle, mid lane Echo is back in a really good spot for 12.19, and there are a few things you should be aware of. Since Echo's passive and R AP ratios were buffed, it now gives Nashers a little more strength over Lichbane. The items were pretty comparable in the previous patches, but since Nashers provides 100 AP while Lichbane only offers 75, Nashers synergizes way better with the buffs. If you're someone who only builds Lichbane Echo, then definitely give Nashers a try this patch. We mentioned in our pre-patch tier list, Echo would not only become stronger in mid due to the buffs, but also because of the Syndra changes. Syndra is Echo mid's most played matchup by a mile this patch, and he's winning over 55% of the time against her. Don't sleep on Echo mid, as he's now one of the better assassins, locking down a strong S tier spot. Believe it or not, one of the most sleeper off-meta picks for 12.19 is Twitch mid. Twitch mid was actually decent before this patch, but the buffs to his AP builds have given him way more strength. The idea behind Twitch mid is very similar to that of Pyke or Singed. You want to be hard shoving waves and looking for roam opportunities as often as possible. With AP Twitch, you have the ability to easily start one-shotting waves just by throwing down W and using E once his passive stacks up on the minions. It's pretty safe to do as well, since Twitch W is a longer range spell, so unlike Pyke, you can farm pretty well while also having good roam potential. For the build, rush a Nashor's Tooth into Rabadon 2nd and Crown the Shattered Queen 3rd. Runes are Hail of Blades with Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and Treasure Hunter. Grab Presence of Mind and Alacrity for secondaries. Twitch's tier list placement is a little tricky to navigate, as he's not being played a ton yet, which makes it difficult to assess his true power level, but if played to his potential, he brings a lot to the table as a solo queue mid laner, so we will be placing Twitch in our A tier. The complete mid lane tier list features Zed, Victor, and Vex in the OP tier. Zed was hit ever so slightly by the Eclipse nerfs, but in reality, the change matters very little, as Zed can run Prowlers or Duskblade and do just as well. For an update on Syndra, she has seen a small uptick in power as a result of the buffs, but not anything crazy so far. Optimization is still underway, and in saying that, Aerie has become a less attractive keystone now. It's still the most picked rune, but is being heavily outclassed by First Strike, which makes a ton of sense. Syndra has lost a lot of her lane bully power, so running a more lane dominant rune like Aerie or Electrocute isn't as valuable. By running First Strike, it coincides much better with the stronger scaling power of new Syndra. The build, however, is still the same as before, with a Luden's Rush into Shadowflame 2nd for the majority of games. We'll be leaving Syndra in our B tier for the time being, but we'll continue to keep you in the loop throughout the next few patches if anything new emerges. Our top 3 low elo recommendations are Swain, Malzahar, and Heimerdinger. Kassadin, Zed, and Vex are all really good mid lane ban options. We already covered the rise of mid lane Twitch, but what have the changes meant for bot lane Twitch? In short, changes have been extremely impactful for bot lane Twitch as well. AP Twitch is not only viable for mid, but is actually winning more than AD in the bot lane too. This is absolutely huge because it turns Twitch into one of the most versatile bot lane carries. Kai'Sa and Varus are 2 other ADCs who can opt for AP builds, but they perform much better when building AD. This is the opposite for Twitch, as his AP build is actually outperforming AD, which no other ADC can say. The cherry on top is that Twitch's AD builds did not become weaker, they're still super strong too, so even though AP is winning slightly more, AD should still be run when your team is lacking physical damage. So the 2 Twitch builds to have in your repertoire are as follows. Blade into Kraken and Hurricane is the standard AD setup, while Nashers into Rabadons and Crown is the best AP build. Definitely run Hail of Blades when building AP, while Lethal Tempo has a place if you're playing AD Twitch and are paired with an Enchanter support. Twitch will be moving up 1 tier from S into OP for mid-patch. With Twitch moving into OP, he will be joined by Misfortune and Kai'Sa. Another adjustment is Jinx moving up 1 more tier from A into S for mid-patch. The Jinx buffs have been just enough to put her back in a top tier position for 12.19. Kai'Sa saw her passive AP ratio buffed, but it has not led to a significant increase in power to her AP builds. AD is still the way to go for the majority of games, however, if your team is completely lacking of any magic damage, then going Manamune into Nashers and Ludens is what you can do. Every patch we're seeing Tristana's play rate rise, and it's for good reason, as she's been one of the most underrated marksmen ever since her recent buffs. The best low elo bot lane carries are Tristana, Misfortune, and Seraphine. MF, Kai'Sa, and Twitch are the most ban-worthy ADCs of the patch. Rakan will be the first support moving up the tier list for mid-patch, as the AP ratio buffs have provided a solid boost in strength. Rakan has some pretty good synergies going on right now as well, with Misfortune and Twitch being high priority ADCs. The Twitch Rakan duo especially is disgustingly deadly, as Twitch can use his stealth to provide Rakan with pick range like no other support. Rakan jumps up one tier, going from B into A. We mentioned in our pre-patch tier list that the Blitz changes could hinder him as a support due to the mana cost increases, but the buffs he received have more than heavily outweighed those nerfs. The intentions behind the buffs were to make Blitz a viable off-meta pick in other roles, but all they've done is turn him into the most OP support. The added skirmish power Blitz now has with the attack speed buffs makes his level 2 all-in absolutely devastating. Hitting a hook on a squishy at level 2 was already a free kill most of the time, but now it's pretty much guaranteed. We'll be adjusting Blitzcrank's tier list placement for mid-patch, moving him from S into OP. We now have 4 supports making up the OP tier, being Blitzcrank, Janna, Amumu, and Maokai. All the talk is about how insane Blitz has become, but we can't forget about the Sona buffs. Sona now rivals Janna as the best solo Q enchanter. Q buffs are huge for the laning phase, especially in melee matchups where you can spam the spell off cooldown once you pick up tier. Not only has Twitch become a viable mid lane pick, but he's seeing a great amount of success played as a support. Very important to note, if you're going to play Twitch support, max E first into W second. It's actually ridiculous the win rate difference between Q max second and W max second. Q wins 47% of the time as opposed to W at 55%. The shorter cooldown on W for better zone control is more beneficial than the extra attack speed from Q. Q cooldown doesn't even decrease the more points you put into it, whereas the slow and cooldown of W both benefit from more points. Out of all of the off-meta build buffs, AP Twitch has been the biggest winner, and he will be moving into our A tier for support. Thresh has been on the edge of moving into S tier ever since his buffs, so we'll be giving him the bump for 12.19. Amumu, Maokai, and Zyra are our top 3 low elo picks for support. Janna, Amumu, and Blitzcrank are on top of our ban list. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent challenger players into Elo Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. So there's your update on the solo queue meta as we reach the midway point of the patch. Thanks so much for watching, good luck in solo queue, and have a great day.